My name is Attwell Mamvuto. I'm an art and design educator at the University of Zimbabwe and in the Department of Art, Design and Technology Education. I've been with this university for almost 20 years now. And before joining the university, I was with a teacher's college. I taught at a teacher's college for 11 years. I'm a primary school teacher by training. I have published in international journals and with publishing houses such as Intellect, John Wiley, Taylor and Francis, and so forth. I teach studio modules, the drawing, the painting, the sculpture, the graphics, and I also teach the related pedagogics. I think briefly that is what I can say about myself. Basically, we are looking at the expressive forms of arts. And these expressive forms of arts come in various dimensions. We have the visual arts, we have dance, we have music, we have theater, and these could be named differently depending on the context and also the country. But these are some of the expressive arts that we have in the region. When we look at these mainly four categories, the visual arts, music, dance, and also other expressive arts, basically they are taught in our primary schools. They are taught in secondary schools as well as in higher and tertiary education. As I indicated earlier on, they are named differently. For example, in Botswana, they are called creative and performing arts. In Zimbabwe, they are called visual and performing arts. So we find these arts at pre-primary. In some countries, they call that early childhood education. They are also taught in the primary, as I indicated, the secondary and tertiary institutions. Now, mainly in the primary school, they are taught as the in an integrated approach, where there is no separation between the visual, the performing, the music, and so forth. Because these are related. Children have got to see the relatedness of those components. But as we go higher, we begin to see a separation where these are taught as discrete components. We now begin to see art and design education as a standalone discipline, music education as a standalone discipline, as well as the other disciplines. And mostly in the primary school, these forms of expressive arts are compulsory. Every child is going to take these forms of arts. But we realize that there are cultural policies available, educational policies that are available. But in some countries, some of these arts are not yet well grounded. So they are taught as co-curricular activities. But many of the countries, these arts at primary school, they are taught as compulsory subjects. We find that at secondary school level, we begin to see some specialization. Some specializing in filming, for example, the visual arts, for example, music education, and so forth. And then as we go higher to tertiary institutions like universities, polytechnics, as well as vocational colleges and teachers' colleges, we see further specialization, and we begin to see the arts as contributing to the socio-economic development of a country. So there's that emphasis at that level. It's also offered at an informal level, where informal institutions, yes, they are not in the mainstream in terms of education, but we see these arts being taught as they relate to communities and as they relate to practices in various societies. Yeah, I think that's what I can say for now. There is the traditional function or purpose of these arts, the expression, self-expression. I think that is fundamental and critical. That's the critical function of the arts. For example, we see the arts being used as therapy, as a form of therapy. That is critical. So we want to see this continuing as a critical function of the arts. We also see, like what I mentioned earlier, the socio-economic contribution of the arts. The arts actually contributing to the economy. We see the creative industry being developed through these arts. We also see the utilization of indigenous knowledge systems or the indigenous knowledge being taken through these arts. So when we see these performances, when we see these creative products, we see the cultures being promoted. You look at the themes, they are indigenous to the different cultures, they are indigenous to the different peoples of the region. So that's another contribution of the arts. There is also emphasis on design problems. And also design solutions. We find that these are aspects that are also emphasized through these arts. And we also see that these arts are very, very critical in terms of social and regional integration. We are preaching peace, and the arts can actually contribute to maintenance and sustenance of peace within the region. Definitely more needs to be done in terms of that. And we see that these programs actually relate to what actually communities practice in the day-to-day lives. So this is another function or purpose of these arts. They are critical to the life experiences of a people. I think this can actually come through the various arts associations that within the region, and also some that are continental, and some associations that are discipline specific, where, for example, we have AFRA, which is a continental association, and we also have regional associations or country associations that are affiliated to AFRA. And when you look at the themes that are promoted by AFRA, when you look at the kind of presentations that are promoted by AFRA and other associations, we see that there is emphasis on regional and international kind of collaboration and coming together of people. There are various such structures. I think as teachers in the southern region, we're at various levels in terms of our needs as educators. We are at various levels in terms of the available institutions for training these teachers. But basically, you find that a number of countries have got the arts at infants level in terms of formal education. But of course, other countries are more advanced in terms of integrating these arts at institutional level, at formal levels. I think what we need is more interaction between and among nations, so that we share experiences, we share the kind of content that we might need, content that might promote the different aspects and facets of the arts. So we need more institutions, we need more interaction and sharing. We need more institutions to actually publicize some of our materials, so that internationally some of these activities are known, and teachers are also known in the various spheres. Resources, definitely we need resources like the libraries. We need resources like the actual materials, the arts materials, and definitely the knowledge is also critical. Yeah, when you look at the arts, especially in Africa, in Southern Africa, they are part of a people's life. They are not separated from actual practice. We see the arts as integral to the life activities of a people. We have, for example, what we call in the Shona culture, mukwerera, the rain-making ceremony. The activities that go with that event, they are part of a people's life. And we want to perpetuate that kind of culture. We want to perpetuate that kind of integratedness of the arts. So the indigenous knowledge systems can actually be an anchor in terms of our art education or arts education in a broad sense. So we want to continue to perpetuate these kind of performances, practices that are integral to the African way of life. Firstly, I think teachers need to be knowledgeable in terms of the practices in communities. They need to be knowledgeable in terms of how these are conducted in various communities. So literature has got to be made available, and teachers need to be acquainted during their pre-service or in-service programs. They need to be taught this kind of knowledge. And integrating community practices through knowledgeable members of society in the school curriculum would be a good approach to the teaching of indigenous knowledge systems. Because there are knowledgeable people in the communities who are not teachers, who can actually contribute significantly to curriculum implementation. So these kinds of artists and knowledgeable community members could be part of the learning process. That could be an approach, a model that we can actually adopt. So being a teacher doesn't mean that you know all the arts. There are people who actually live the arts. They are within the arts. They practice the arts. Those are the best teachers, not some cultural exponent, but we are looking at people who are actually practicing those arts. So ethnographic kind of approaches to learning and teaching of the arts could be useful. Research into these arts could be useful. Right. I think when we make it an integral part of curriculum implementation, I think we need to make it an ongoing kind of project, not a once-off kind of thing, where we say, for example, I'm teaching a particular art form, and I know relevant and knowledgeable members of the community who could be part of the artist in residence kind of program. They come on specific agreed times, and then they are part of the learning process, the teaching process. And it's not that once they do that, then they disappear. We make it a regular thing, and also enter into some kind of a relationship, establish the relationship, so that once in a while they're always coming and they are implementing some of these or teaching these aspects of the arts.
Yeah, that's really a fantastic idea. Do you know any country where they already have this model implemented?
I can't pick on specific countries, but of course, in my own teaching, I've tried to bring in artists, visual artists, to integrate them, to offer certain modules. And I've also taken my students out to the artist studios, so they interact with the practicing artists as part of this approach. And it might be difficult for me to actually pick on individual countries and lecturers or teachers. Yeah, but basically that's the approach. Students learn better when they interact with practicing artists rather than or more than they would get from the teacher that they are used to. So as a teacher, I'm just there as a facilitator because I've got the advantage of the pedagogics component. But they learn quite a lot from visits to artist studios and learning and interacting with them. For the region, for Africa as a continent, I think there is need to indigenize our curriculum. Yes, there is always that blend, learning from other cultures, but we also need to incorporate lots of indigenous knowledge and blend that with important kind of knowledge. So teachers, I think they need to actually contribute more in terms of curriculum review and implementation. They need to participate in the review processes so that they bring in this dimension of relevant cultural knowledge into the curriculum. I think that's what I can say. When you look at these arts, they, especially at primary school level, they are not examined at some exit stage. And because of that, you tend to see that teachers don't put too much effort into the teaching of those arts and focus on what they think are the more significant, more valuable subjects. So I've interacted with a number of teachers, and they've actually indicated that if we can have these arts examined at the different levels, at primary school level, secondary school level, and of course at tertiary level, then we begin to see that these arts will be taken more seriously by the teachers. We are not looking at the traditional formal kind of examination, profiling a learner's performance through their education system or throughout the years. It could be at primary, like for example, in most countries, it's 7 to 9 years. That's the primary education, including, of course, the early childhood education. That profiling and then being put together at the end of the level would be another form of examination, not the traditional 2-hour, 3-hour kind of examination. So these would vary depending on what the education system of a country requires. But I think for the arts, we need to run away from the traditional kind of testing and integrate other approaches to it. That's it, the storytelling, the portfolio building, and some kind of research, bringing some research into it so that we develop these research skills at an early age. Yeah, and document that as form of examination. Not the usual
test.
paper.
Yes.
Communities should see the importance of the arts. The schools should see the importance of art. And once these are not tested in some form, it's like when a school says, what subject should we get rid of? They start off with the arts. Yeah. Because we are not there in the curriculum. So we need to see the significance of these arts. And through testing certain skills in certain ways, we make them significant in the curriculum.